Everybody swimming in sunshine. Everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the fun line. Ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
Taking the good with the ups and downs. I wanna see how the world turns round. Let's go adventure in the deep blue sea. Home is with you wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine. Everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line. Ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine. Everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line. Ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
and downs. I wanna see how the world turns round. Let's go adventure in the deep blue sea. Home is with you wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
Taking the good with the ups and downs. I wanna see how the world turns round. Let's go adventure in the deep blue sea. Home is with you wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
Okay, good morning councillors, good morning officers and Mr CEO. Welcome for the Ordinary Council meeting for the 22nd of March 2022. I know we have Councillor Wilkinson's here, he's probably just grabbing a cup of tea, and we will hold the seat open for Councillor Rutherford. Haven't had any apologies there, so reasonably comfortable we'll have a full house. So moving on to confirmation of previous minutes, could I seek a mover in a second with regards to the minutes meeting held on the 8th of March? Moved Councillor Kirkland, seconded Councillor Smith. Any discussions around that? I'll put that. Those in favour? Opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Declarations of interest in matters on the agenda. Councillor Kirkland.
Ms Mayor, I just want to flag that I have checked with CEO with regards to whether there was a declaration or not with regards to item 11.3. It was determined that there was no conflict as my children have sold that property just recently.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for that clarification. Councillors have been remiss of me. I've jumped over the acknowledgement to country. My apologies. I'll go through that now if that's okay. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today, the Darumbal people, and pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. I also extend that respect to our neighbouring Aboriginal peoples within our local government area, the Gungaloo Nation people, the Barada, Cabelbarra and Yetamarala people, also acknowledge the Torres Strait Islander people whose land is on the Torres Straits but who live and work on Aboriginal lands. Thank you. I've got to be a little bit less eager and to push on, but that said, we'll make our way through it. So apologies again. Business outstanding, nil. Public forums, deputations, nil. Presentation of petitions, nil. Committee reports, 9.1, the Audit and Business Improvement Committee meeting from the 10th of March 2022. Could I seek a mover and a seconder with regards to that? Councillor Latcham, seconded Councillor Mathers. I'll put that. Those in favour? Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you, councillors. Moving on to item 9.1.1. No, sorry. A little bit of a meltdown with my computer at the moment too, so just bear with me. Moving on to item 11.1, the budget approval for the R1 software as a service subscription. So ask Brendan to speak to that one. Morning, Councillor Rutherford. Thanks, Brendan.
Good morning, Mr Mayor, councillors. The report and recommendation before you this morning is to approve budget allocation for our R1 software as a service subscription with Technology One commencing the 1st of July 2022. Council has been utilising the Technology One solution since about the year 2000, and the move to software as a service model where the solution will be hosted in the cloud is the next step in the progression of this software solution. The approval of this budget allocation for year one will enable the execution of the contract to commence the transition project. It's therefore recommended that Council approves the additional operational expenditure of $376,414 for year one for the R1 Software as a Service subscription with Technology One commencing the 1st of July 2022. And if approved, this amount will be included in the 2022-23 operational budget. Happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Brendan. Question, councillors. Councillor Wickerson and Councillor Kirkland. Councillor Wickerson.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Through you, I had to read this a few times just to understand what we were getting for the extra money, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's just making it easy for the supplier. It's all cloud-based now rather than the way we had to do it before, unless there was some emergent. We could keep it as it is and then call people in for any emergent patches or whatever for the software, but I didn't fully understand we're making it easy for the supplier who has a bit of a closed shop, that we're so embedded with other bits and pieces of our software that we have no choice but to go with the same supplier unless we throw the whole system out and start again. So I guess the question is there some competition out there that we might do better? I know that's a massive job, but it just seemed, I couldn't understand what we were getting for the extra money other than to make it easier to the supplier of the software.
Yes, it is one of those situations where the supplier or the vendor in this situation has us in a position where we need to move with what they're suggesting. They, I suppose from their business model, which they have been talking about for quite a long time, is that they're moving to that whole software as a service is the only way that they will be providing their solution. So we don't have much of a choice at this particular point in time, apart from, as you've suggested, is to look at competition out there. The R1 or the Technology One solution that we're utilising touches so many points across council, and you are correct in saying that to move and look at competition is a major outlay. It's a major amount of resourcing and effort to actually to look at replacing that and then actually going through the implementation of changing that as well. So yes, it is one of those situations where over time, as we get more and more services in the cloud, it will enable us to reduce our on-premise footprint. But whilst we're in this transition process where we're handling with our own storage, our own compute on-premise in our server rooms, and as we're moving some of those solutions up to the cloud, whilst we've still got to maintain our on-prem, that's where the savings aren't going to be realised until such point where we reach a tipping point where the majority of that is in the cloud. And that's going to be a journey, over the coming years, as I believe that more software vendors, this is the way that they'll be heading, because it is easier for them to maintain the development of their solutions in the cloud, and then not having to also deliver the solution for on-prem and support that as well. So that's the nature of where the industry is heading in this situation.
Yeah, no, Mr Mayor, that's what I thought, but I don't like it that we're sort of backed into a corner and we have no choice, but what are you going to do other than maybe down the track look at competition, competitive solutions for it? Are you generally happy with it? I mean, is it... Yeah,
look, the Technology One solution is out there among numerous councils. It's always been difficult because everyone's at different parts of their journey within the process. Some elements of the system are further generations ahead than others. So you'll know that we run probably more of a best-of-breed solution. So we've only got components in Tech One. We also use other vendors for our property and rating. We use another vendor for our payroll and our mapping and that as well. So whilst we've got this best-of-breed, eventually part of our strategic plan has been to consolidate our systems as much as possible so that we're only dealing with the one vendor. But it's about looking at the functionality of those systems and make sure that the solutions are meeting what the requirements of the business are. So.
Yeah, no, understood.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Wickerson. Councillor Kirkland.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I too had similar questions and queries to what my colleague Councillor Wickerson had, but I also feel that the strategy of the IT space, I suppose, of the organisation is necessary for us to continue forward with And the reasoning for that, of course, utmost is our cyber security and to make sure that we don't have any areas where we're easily breached, and that's all a part of that strategy. We are a little beholden to the experts in IT. I don't think there's anyone at the table here that would testify to knowing more than anyone in the IT department. So Brendan, we really appreciate the fact what sounds like you've done serious homework on coming back to this is the only direction for us to move forward, and certainly happy to move forward with that. Just wanting to make comment to it, really, Mr Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Kirkland. Councillor Mathers and Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Through you too. Brendan, I just wanted to ask in regards to the request, the 367,000 for year one.
Yep.
What ongoing costs are there over the next few years? Well, I suppose what I'm asking is that figure going to reduce over the next few years, or is that going to be a standard fee?
That's the standard fee, and then there's a CPI base increase on top of that as well, including there's some variable costs in there also in relation to storage costs. So when we move to a software as a service solution, you pay for what you use. So as our system continues to grow, as our records grow, the storage component also grows, so therefore there's additional, it's not a huge component of it, but it is part of that solution. So it will require us to be a bit more stringent in our archiving and record disposal practices to make sure that we are not holding on things, certainly when we're paying for them in the cloud like that, that we are working through the proper processes and disposing of records when they're required to be or no longer required, so that we aren't having that additional expense.
Certainly understand that. Just another one, Mr Mayor. So our existing R1 system that we've got now, what's the yearly cost of that compared to the 376 that we're looking at for the
so there is
there's
an additional about 350,000 that we pay for support and maintenance. So that's the development of the solution, along with us being able to ring up and get support across the organisation. What isn't clearly identifiable is the cost of us running all of that within our system. So you've got licence costs, our own server costs, our additional backups and all of that sort of stuff. So it's difficult because we do that for multiple systems, so to try and extract that out into each individual system is a bit of an exercise in itself. But that's why I said if, whilst we've still got to do that for a number of systems, we don't see that saving until we've removed that component altogether. And that will be a fair way down the track as well. So.
Okay, yeah, I understand it, because it did seem like it was going to be, the system to start with would be considerably dearer, but you just touched on something that was also a question I had, was in regards to the licensing fees. We know, I think CEO was saying how much each year our licensing costs are going up. Will this help some of that? Will the licensing fees maybe be reduced, or would we need less, or we're still going to need the same?
Still going to have to pay those same licensing fees. So yeah, you pay a perpetual license to actually use the system. This component is for them to actually host it and do the compute and the storage on our behalf, along with all of the other backup security. So they run from a DR point of view, they run an active situation. So they're running data that's in 3 different data centres around the country. So if it fails on one, it automatically goes across to another one. Obviously there are risks involved because it's in the cloud, so if something does happen to our internet services, then like Tasmania lost was out of action, so that would basically mean in a majority of cases that people wouldn't have access to the system unless we've got other things in place which might be satellite or something that won't work as efficiently as what you would expect under the normal internet connections that we have. So that's other things that we're looking at as part of the project to make sure that our infrastructure and our internet connections are scoped and scaled to be able to handle the additional traffic that this type of solution will bring on those particular parts of the network.
Yeah. Thanks very much for that. Thanks very much, Brendan. Yeah, Mr Mayor, it just goes to show that's the world that we live in now. Everything's going cloud-based. It's all fantastic until internet goes down, and then we're in all sorts of bother. But that's the world we're in now. Thank you.
It's technology to make our lives a lot easier, but it comes at a cost, Councillor. So it's unfortunately that's the thing. But you're right. If you haven't got that internet connection, then what do you do? Thanks, Brendan, for that. Councillor Smith?
Yeah, just with, pardon me, the amount of 237. So that's only for the first year, obviously, the pre-transition preparatory work. So the first year it's about nearly $1 million, 995. Is that right? With the two amounts, 376, 351, and the 237. That's just for the first year.
Yes, that's right. The 350 odd is the ongoing. We have to pay that anyway, regardless of whether we're on-prem or in the cloud. The 376 is the cost to get us in the cloud, and then as far as the ongoing software as a service cost, and then your 237 is what we've sort of projected will cost us to get the system ready and to move it up into the cloud, because there's complexities with the system around integrations with our existing systems. We need to work through all of those particular items and make sure that they are going to work through this new setup in the cloud, along with some changes to the system configuration itself, where we're running some legacy items. We've got to go through and make sure that those legacy items are updated so that they will work in the cloud solution. So it is a bit of a complex task that we have to do, and we have given ourselves some time to actually go through and deliver that, keeping in mind that, as I've mentioned in our staffing resources, are also trying to do other operational work, certainly out in the business, but certainly our IT team obviously have a number of other projects we're working on, so we've got to make sure that we can supply resourcing to be able to carry out those parts of the project.
Yeah, I just always thought the cloud was nearly free, you know. It was a lot cheaper than because everyone's saying, oh, your photos are all up in the cloud and it doesn't cost anything on your phone. See? And I'm always shocked at the IT budget as it is, capital and operational. But I know we need it. But geez, it's getting dear. I hate to think what a large council would be paying, like bigger than us.
Yep. Unfortunately, unavoidable in this modern day and age. It's something that we do. When you say roads, rates and rubbish, there's a lot more that's built in there. Yeah, I think we need to include that in the future. It's coming that way. But that said, we have a functioning, to function the organisation, you need to have those services, so it's part and parcel of that. Anything further, Brendan? No. Councillors, if there are no further questions there, could I seek a mover and a seconder with regards to this report, please? Move Councillor Wickerson, second Councillor Kirkland. I'll put that. Those in favour? Those opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. Thanks very much, Brendan. We'll move on to the Walter Reed Cultural Centre lease renewals, 11.2. Thanks very much, John. John, just before you go, just before you start, I'd just like to again pass on my congratulations to the team with the Jersey Boys performance. It's something there that getting rave reviews around town, and it's fantastic that we're able to have that homegrown talent to that quality. And it's all the things that go on behind the scene, the musicians, but all the preparation and the staff and the team that's involved in that. And yeah, again, if you can pass on our congratulations from the councillors, it'll be much appreciated. So thank you again. Yeah.
Through the chair, I'll pass those on. I know a number of councillors have sent me emails. If you're comfortable, I'd love to include some of that content for the cast and the creatives as well. Just as a council officer and also somebody who lives in Rockhampton, I'd just like to thank and commend the council for continuing to support this kind of activity. It's part of what we want to do to make sure that we are a growing and buoyant community, and that it's a great place to live 365 days a year. It's also worth noting that in this particular instance, look, we don't do it all the time, that it's 100% local. It is important for us at times to bring external people in to ensure that everybody gets the development and we can maintain those standards. But the real testament is that all of those people that you see work and live in our community, and many of them have returned to our community. So it's this kind of thing that we have, I think, through our cultural services, which allows participation and allows exposure to everybody to make sure that Rockhampton is a successful, wonderful place. So that's enough soapboxing for me, but thank you very much for the council table in supporting that.
Here, that's something there that we all should be very proud of. So again, congratulations. Okay, we'll move on to the report, the Walter Reed Cultural Centre lease renewals.
Yep, thank you. Through the chair, councillors, here we've got a report. The recommendations are the sort of standard recommendations that you'd see that pursuant to section 236 Local Government Regulation, Council approved the renewal of the freehold leases and licences as identified in this report. And Council authorised the Chief Executive Officer through the Manager of Communities and Culture to negotiate the terms and conditions of the agreements with the organisations listed in the report in preparation for execution by the Delegated Officer. These agreements are to be for a period of 2 years with requirements for usage and activation reporting. I'll just go through some of the commentary. In considering the appropriate course of action for Council, we've got a few general options. Renewing all tenancies for another 5-year term, transition to a month-by-month tenancy allowing Council to review usage and seek expression of interest from current and alternative cultural and recreational users within the community, or renew for an alternative term. Summarising, you see there, I've suggested, I can anticipate Council wanting to be able to assess the usage that's occurred within these sort of, I guess, these valuable and worthwhile tenancies in Walter Reed. But I think in considering how things have been in the past few years from a COVID perspective, these tenancies are nearly all managed by organisations that rely on community involvement. I'm sure you're all aware COVID's made life particularly difficult for many volunteer and community and cultural organisations. So the recommendation that I've proposed here is that we renew for a 2-year period. However, keeping in line with some recent council decisions with regards to sporting tenancies and leases, maybe ask the providers for some information about the regularity of usage. That way we might have a reasonable set of data to make some consideration about the best uses of the sites in the future. And I think that that's possibly a reasonable process as we are at the moment. There'll be one tenancy that extends a little bit longer, but that was the tenancy which we took to council just as COVID was hitting. But that'll allow us to align this and get a bit of information and give these organisations some breathing room to sort of recover from what's going on with COVID. So thank you.
Thanks, John. Questions, councillors? Councillor Wickerson and Councillor Smith.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. I just wanted probably a good segue from the previous comments about Jersey Boys. You know, some of the people in that production may well have performed in a minor role at Walter Reed.
Certainly.
At some stage, so it just shows how important to foster the cultural and creative community we have here, even at that grassroots level, is so important. I'm happy to move as per officer's recommendation. I think, given that there's some organisations, I'm thinking about the printmakers, are highly active. They have exhibitions regularly, so very comfortable with that. But there's other organisations there that, frankly, I didn't even know existed, so they might be terribly inactive. But given, as you said, the COVID climate we've just come out of, all these clubs are suffering, and so you've got to take that into consideration, that give them a chance to pick themselves up. But you made the comment about keep in touch with them, have a chat with them about what their future plans may be. And I think if we go with the 2 years, that can always be cut short by their own choice. And then to free up those spaces for maybe other groups who might be interested in looking for some accommodation. I understand there are still some vacant tenancies there too, so it's not like it's not at 100% capacity, but it must be getting pretty close to it. So yeah, very happy with everything you said. The only other comment I had, this might be one that Evan and I had a chat about. It's a bit of a secret space right down in the basement, Mr CEO, which I know that there's some issues with access and head heights and all that, but I've, in the far distant past, we had a jazz club and a folk club down there, which was a bit like the Cavern, the Beatles, you might have heard of it.
Certainly, I've heard of it.
I would love to see that space activated again if there's any way that we could make it safe, and obviously it's got to comply with every rule, but it's such a wonderful space. It's sort of a bit hidden away, so I won't give up on that, Mr CEO.
Leave that one as it is, but anyway, it's worth having a talk about. Councillor Smith.
Might be a bomb shelter one day. Just thanks, Mr Mayor. I was just concerned. The Rockhampton and Stepford have the smallest area, like only 42 square metres, compared to some of the others, 257, etc. Yet they're charged $5,000 odd a year That's $100 a week. They're all volunteers. The Eisteddfods mainly for the younger children, like a lot of our kids that have competed in the Eisteddfod here have gone onto the world stage. And I just wondered why we're charging that association so much money.
John, are you able to answer that?
Yeah, through the chair. I think that's just a historic anomaly. I would imagine that when these comparative rates were set, there was a view that the Eisteddfod had much greater earning capacity. That may no longer be the case, certainly keeping into consideration COVID, but then also just, I think, the change in the model that Eisteddfods were. So I'm sort of happy to look at that as well, and I can do that through consultation with the CEO and General Manager from that perspective as well. It's also worth remembering that the Eisteddfod as an association also does receive then further independent support from Council from the community application process. So we can go through a process to review all of those inputs to work out what's a reasonable situation.
Okay, thanks very much, John. Okay, councillors, there's no further questions. I need a seconder for the officer's recommendation. Councillor Rutherford, put that. Those in favour? Opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. Thanks very much, John. 11.4, the community engagement plan. Oh no, sorry, 11.3, the development assessment decisions under delegation February 2021.
Good morning, Mr Mayor and councillors. This is a report on the development applications that were received in February this year. The majority of them will be decided under delegation, but there's 2 that may come to council. The recommendation is that the report be received.
Thanks very much, Tanya. Councillor Mathers, any comment there? Would you like to move?
No comment, but happy to move.
Okay, thank you. Question? Move Councillor Mathers, seconded Councillor Fisher. Councillor, if there's no questions there to Tanya, we'll move that. Those in favour? Those opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Now we move on to 11.4, the community engagement plan, the planning scheme amendment. Cam, talk us through that one. Thanks very much, Cameron.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and good morning, Mr Mayor and councillors. As councillors would be aware, we're currently undertaking a major amendment to the Rockhampton Region Planning Scheme to incorporate flood modelling, flood mapping for local catchments in the Fitzroy River. The purpose of the report is to identify for approval the community engagement plan for the public consultation stage. So state government have signed off for their state interest review and our council can start the commencement of the public consultation process. So I've attached the community engagement plan that outlines the process and the types of activities that we'll be undertaking, as well as identifying the period for public consultation. So the period that we're looking at is from the 4th of April through to the 3rd of June. Council, as discussed previously, we're looking to stagnate the issuing of letters to residents because we have 3,500 residents to be notified who have properties that are impacted by these changes. It's important to recognise that the flood modelling information is already on our website. This process is about incorporating those maps into the planning scheme so we can put some development controls for those people who have impacted. In relation to the importance of doing this work, I think councillors would be aware of the Queensland Floods Commission of Inquiry report that was done back in 2012. Had a number of recommendations, one of which was that if councillors do modelling, that they should make that available, particularly flood modelling and overland flow maps, to make that available for residents and applicants for development applications. So there is an obligation, of course, of council to provide this information for the community, particularly in light of recent events in Lismore and South East Queensland, whereby a number of people have been impacted, not just by the mapping, but levels above and beyond what's been mapped in those areas. So it's really, really important work that we undertake, and in relation to the planning scheme itself, it's about obviously communicating that with residents to make everybody aware that they will be subject to flooding, where it's overland flow, creeks, or the updated modelling to the Fitzroy River. Now, we already have modelling in the scheme itself for North Rockhampton and Gracemere, so those two have been updated. We have new modelling now for South Rockhampton and Gracemere, so there'll be a number of people impacted, new people impacted in South Rockhampton and Mount Morgan. For North Rockhampton and Gracemere, there'll be updated modelling for those areas. Is there any questions?
Thanks, Cameron. It's, yeah, again, something there that it's a document and it's a process that we've been undertaking since that report was presented in 2012 to do that modelling and then start the process of mapping and incorporating that into our planning. So it's fresh of mind only, fortunately, probably unfortunately, that we've seen what's happened down south and you know, the impacts that flooding and flash flooding can occur and what it can have. And again, that stemmed from the 2011 event where it was required that council include this mapping into their planning scheme. So it's something there that we've obligated to do under legislation. So part of that process is making sure that we inform the community and as we walk through these steps to do what the modelling's telling us and how to present that back to the community. So we've got a number of lights on, so I'm sure there's a few questions there. We'll start with Councillor Fisher, Deputy Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Fisher.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Probably to the CEO, we're going to go out to the community, the North Rockhampton Creek catchments, which we are talking about flood issues. We've got residents already sort of raising concerns about sort of some of the issues with weed infestation of our waterways. Is it possible to have that report that's coming back on how we're going to address the weed management issues around our bridges and crossings within the region before we go out to community consultation?
Peter to respond to that one. Thanks very much, Peter.
Through the Chair, I'm not certain we could have that report done prior to this process. This is starting now.
Yes.
The issue around weed management, but the whole thing about clearing creeks is, as you know, not a simple process, and it's an environmental process. So the notion that we just go in and remove weeds, as you call them, isn't as simple as that and unlikely to occur. If it's debris that's been transported and caught there, yes, and we're already looking at doing that, but it's almost a perception that those weeds actually have a significant impact on flood behaviour. It's such a small amount in those creeks that I know the community sees it, but it isn't as big a risk as what is perceived. But happy to look at where it's those particular ones that you've sent in where it's particularly overgrown, but don't be surprised if there be patches there where we can't touch it. Okay.
Second question,
Councillor Fisher.
Just knowing that I'm concerned that actually the planning consultation is liable to become hijacked by residential concern about their concerns or belief that the infestation of the waterways is going to impact and change a lot of the flow and the risks around the stormwater flooding in those areas. So it may be sort of something that we need to be sort of prepared for and have some information about a process and what's involved. I actually take on board what Peter said, that but we need to be able to relay that to the public because they are seeing concerns, particularly from Lismore and Gympie and what has happened there. Thank you.
Peter?
Through the Chair, the principle of this process here is to make people aware that they are within a flood zone. And that won't make them necessarily happy. But the whole premise here is that we're identifying properties where development occurred and probably shouldn't. Structurally, the council will never resolve those flood problems. The best protection will be that you as a homeowner know where the flooding will occur and what to do to minimise damage. Because there is no magic wand or some pipe that we'll put into these catchments to change these flood conditions significantly. So it's awareness, that's really the key of this whole process.
Yeah, and just through the chair too, I mean, when we get submissions from the public, we get a variety of concerns raised from members of the public, and if one is about weeding, then certainly we would refer that onto the responsible department, and if there's a management plan that's been looked at, then that information be passed on and inform that process. In relation to timing of public consultation, we really need to start it within a reasonable time of the state interest checks. So, yeah, we don't have a lot of scope to continually delay it. And bear in mind that this flood modelling is available on our websites. This is a process to incorporate into the scheme, the mapping.
Okay, thanks, Peter and Cameron. Councillor Mathers, Portfolio Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. Through you to Cam. Cam, I'd just like to say congratulations and thanks very much for all the hard work that you and your team have put in. This has been a huge body of work. You know, I don't have to tell you that, but, you know, to send that off to the State Development Office and to have this work come back with no conditions put on it at all, I think that speaks highly of the quality of work that you and your team have sent down there. So I think that's really good. It means that we can be quite confident of the modelling that's been done, and I think that should go a long way to satisfying some of the questions with the, within the general public. You know, I understand that there are going to be some people who are disappointed because their homes, in their mind, weren't in flood areas, but when we look at South Rocky and also Mount Morgan that have never had that flood mapping done, you know, I think council have a duty of care to make sure that all our residents are aware if they're at the risk of flooding. Some people may not want to hear that, but it's something that needs to be done, and I think what's happened down south has been a very good reflection on that. So, you know, I think it's very timely and very important work, and I'm happy to move this. Mr Mayor.
Thanks. And through the chair, just in relation to, thanks very much to Councillor Maver for your comments. I'd like to acknowledge the work that our engineers have done, because they've done all the modelling. So Manisha and Stu Harvey's team, and Strategic Infrastructure Planning, as well as our GIS team, particularly Christian Smith's done a heck of a lot of work with the mapping, and when we go out to public consultation, we're sending letters, but also sending them a map of their individual property, and there's been a lot of work done by GIS to actually make that happen. So the GIS team have done a fantastic job along with Manisha and Strategic Infrastructure Engineers. So, yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Rutherford.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I've got two questions, if I could. And the first one is just to see whether it would be possible to have the Argus included in the advertisements that are going to be placed. So we've got advertisements to be placed in CQ Today newspaper. So can we have the Argus?
Argus?
Mount Morgan Argus included in that?
Yes.
Please. And then the other one is just off topic a little bit, and we have this here for these areas, but I'm just wondering what our plans are for the likes of Stanwell, Cabra and Bejewel. So is this something we're going to extend now?
I'll leave that to
Peter.
Peter.
Be able to follow up on it?
The answer is yes, but at the moment there is no budget provision to go any further than the catchments we've done. So, we've added some new catchments first time. The next cycle, typically you'd like to do this every 5 years, an update. So I think we will consider that next cycle, which is not that far away.
Yeah, I would think Stanwell in particular, the issue that they had was extremely dangerous, and I would think probably more dangerous than any we've had. So I would think that they would be a fairly high priority.
We've effectively focused on the urban areas to date, but yeah, we need to go.
Yeah, I get that, and the numbers with that, but I just think, you know, Stanwell was, it was a very, very dangerous, scary situation. And Yeah, and we're having people, you know, relocate all the time, and you would have no idea that, you know, the water could come through there the way it did.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Rutherford. Councillor Smith?
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. Just a little bit curious about all the properties that were wet in 2015 are now dry. Does that mean we got it wrong then? The only time I've ever seen that prediction like that was when we were planning for the levy. And I just wondered why they're now dry, but also are they part of the number of people we contact to say, you know, it has changed, you're now not wet, because a lot of those people could be paying flood insurance if they're on the map as being wet in 2015.
Kim?
I'll answer the last part first. Yes, they will be notified. It is important to recognise, though, that in that correspondence that they should be still aware that this is a 1% AEP. You can have larger events, and yes, this mapping doesn't show them within it, but as we've seen down at Lismore, you know, people have been flooded that never thought they would get flooded. So yes, they will be notified in this correspondence. In relation, and I'll refer to the engineers, I'll probably be able to get better technical advice than me, but there have been a number of changes, you know, new developments, drainage corridors put in, things like that, that does impact upon the modelling and what happens in those particular areas. You know, Forest Park Estate was one, for instance, where it came across a number of houses, and as they've done their development, they've obviously channellised that water, and as a result, a number of properties are no longer impacted. So as with modelling, you get better and better information, better and better data, better LiDAR data that's updated, and it's a continual process of improvement. And you'll find that, yes, some properties won't be impacted. Obviously, we've identified a number who are now, so, but I'm not sure if the engineers want to provide a little bit more technical advice than what I've provided, but...
No, look, it's just those, the key things is technology and data, and so the surface elevations or the LiDAR that was described is a much finer mesh and more accurate. It's not too much different to that. The next time we'll do it, it'll be the same again. We'll get finer, more resolution, more accuracy. So that's why it's updated each 5 years, one of those reasons. Changes in the catchment and technology. Yeah,
and geographies are always changing too. Creeks change just naturally. So it's a continual process.
It's a live document that's continually upgraded and improved.
Just a comment, Mr Mayor. I concur with what Councillor Fisher said about the creeks being chocked up, because if you want to see Lakina growing at its very best, come to Gavial Creek, the start of Gavial Creek that flows into the river here.
Everywhere.
Absolutely chocked up at Bouldercombe, and that has got to change the flow of the water. If it can't get through, it's going to back up to properties, and then they're going to be mapped as having being flooded, and it's only because of the creeks, in the debris in the creeks, the trees in the creek rather. Same at Gracemere. Gracemere Creek is in the same situation. It's absolutely, I don't know how the water flows through it at all in places. Just a comment.
Introduced species. That's weird. Anyway, thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Kirkland?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I have a couple of questions, if that's okay. So I'm just wanting to ask Cam, if people come along to the consultation and they've actually come prepared to make submissions, what is the opportunity and what sort of submissions can people make? Is that going to be outlined and highlighted to them, the type of submission that they can make and the process of doing that, but also the likelihood of a submission making any difference to this particular modelling? What's the chance of that?
Peter, did you want to?
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Unlikely. Okay. So what will happen is they can supply information, photos, or any information of, you know, I lived and saw it here or whatever. We will feed that into the next iteration. Unless there's some glaring error, but that's unlikely, It's used to build the next model.
Okay.
One last comment is also the fact that we talked about they may get removed from insurance companies. The insurance companies don't rely much on local council data, to be honest. They will have a look at it and take it, but they do their own at a much more rapid pace than us. So they've got their own modelling, and that's how they determine their risk, not from our local studies typically.
Thanks, Peter, and through you, Mr Mayor, I think that's highlighted that this is a two-way process. There are some people who will find that they're now modelled as potentially in a 1 in 100 year chance of getting wet, whereas some who were previously modelled wet are now dry, and so the opportunity for them is to take this modelling back to their insurance company and say, please read it and weep, change my insurance policy to reflect as such. So that's a good thing, that's a positive thing for our community. As to the modelling and how that has come about. So my second question is, will all of the letters that you're sending out, go to both the tenants of the properties as well as the owners of the properties? My reason for asking that is that, leaning back into what I just previously said, with insurance, they need to have that peace of mind that their property insurance will be realised and recognised around the modelling.
Through the Chair, the letters will go to the owners of the land and not the tenants. Legally, we should notify the owners of the land. It's the owners of the land's obligation to, because tenants come and go, we don't know who's necessarily tenanting a business, but we certainly know who's the owner of the land. And you know, that's why we notify the owner of land, because they are obviously responsible for that parcel of land. So we will notify the owners of lands, not necessarily the tenants. We will obviously advertise what we're doing to try and make the community aware. We've got an interactive website that everybody can go on and have a look and see where the flooding occurs. We've even got before and afters of what's currently in place on the planning scheme and what we're proposing. So even people can see what's actually changed from the current mapping to the new one. So also we'll be doing stalls in shopping centres and things like that. So we are trying to reach as many as we can, but obviously from a database perspective, when we're sending out letters, we'll be sending those directly to the landowners.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Is there anything stopping us through you, Mr Mayor, to the CEO for councillors doing a letterbox drop to notify to the tenants of, because some of those properties are long-term tenanted properties that are now going to be affected. I believe that the tenants of those properties have the right to come along and get some information around that.
Yeah, you can do that, councillor.
That's fine?
That's fine.
Awesome. And suppose that also in reflection of that modelling, Cam, oh, it's all right. I think you've answered it in the last, I'll just leave that question. Mount Morgan, is that, those figures represent almost 1/3 of Mount Morgan recognised as now potentially getting wet?
Mount Morgan, 370 properties.
Oh, I thought it was 800 and something, sorry.
Yeah, you look at the mapping, it doesn't appear to be 1/3 of...
Sure.
Yeah,
Oh, good.
it's Mount Morgan is actually quite well defined in the river and drainage areas. They're quite well defined, so I wouldn't hazard a guess at what percentage of Mount Morgan is covered. Bear in mind with all these properties too is that council actually owns a number of them as well, so they're inflated a little bit.
It says 859 properties here.
Yeah. So.
Okay. Alrighty. Thank you. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Kirkland. Councillor, if there are no further questions to Cameron, could I seek a seconder with regards to that report? Deputy Mayor, Councillor Fisher. Put that. Those in favour? Those opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. Thanks very much, Cameron. Thank you. Moving on to 11.5, the Summary Budget Management Report for the period ending the 28th of February 2022. I'll ask Marnie to present that report. Thanks very much, Marnie.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So, good morning, everyone. Presented this morning is the summary budget management report for the end of February this year, 2022. We're at a point in the year of about just under 67% of the year consumed, and in terms of our operating revenue, it's sitting at 87% of the budget, due mainly to the net rates and utility charges being at 96% of the budget. That discount period closed on the 9th of March, and it is apparent that we had a relatively good take-up of the discount period by our ratepayers, with only less than 3,000 letters going out for missed discount to ratepayers since the close of the discount period. Grants and subsidies are currently behind budget at 60%, due around the Rookwood Weir Landholders Grant Program, and other income is at 80% of the revised budget. So generally speaking, our revenue is tracking quite well compared to our budget. In terms of total operating expenditure, it's at 62% of our budget. Contractors and consultants are at 51%, and materials and plant expenses are higher at 72%. So this has been due to the increased level of recoverable works, and there is also offsetting increases in recoverable works revenue as well to offset that. But there have also been increases in chemical costs around the turbidity of the river and the treatment at the Glenmore Water Treatment Plant. Our asset operational costs are below budget at 62%, and admin expenses are at 50% based on the timing for various things like pool management, IT equipment and software support. You'll also see that our capital income is sitting below budget at 48%, and our capital expenditure, which we've discussed widely, is around the 29% of the budget. We're currently in the process of assessing the budget packs for the 22-23 financial year, as well as the amendments to the 21-22 capital, and that's going through a process now of review, which we'll bring back to council in due course. The investments are sitting at 97.5 million, due mainly to our rates levies and increased cash coming in, and our total loans were sitting at just under 133 million as at the end of the month. We did see 8.2 million spent on our capital program for February, with that total spend being 47.9 million. Happy to take any questions.
Okay, thanks, Marnie. Questions, Councillor Kirkland?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Through you, and this may need to go to Peter, this question. On page 44, the total operating expenditure, there's a comment there about materials and plant expenses being at 72%. It also says, it gives reasoning around that, and the second part of that is that there's been increased chemical costs for FRW for the water treatment as a result of the high turbidity of the water. My question is there normally a contingency included in operational costs for this, because we do have a naturally high turbidity in Fitzroy as a rule? I would have thought that there would have been a contingency set aside for those types of chemical increases. I do have a couple of questions around it, but that's the first part.
There is a contingency built in, but the turbidity is much higher than normal. So it's not a normal situation we're dealing with.
Okay. Is it just because of water, rain and that sort of thing further upstream that's caused that extra turbidity, or is there something else contributing to it?
No, that's correct. It's just the upstream receiving waters have changed.
Okay, so it's just mud and stuff. It's nothing else that's being released into the water. That is a good news there. Also, just further on, just wondering about, of course, we've got this water at the moment where we're waiting for the aluminium chlorohydrate to arrive. Is that an additional expense as well, because we've had to go to a different supplier?
No, it's not, no. The rates are pretty consistent across the suppliers. Yeah. We are out to tender for a contract for the supply, which will, over time, I'm hoping, give us a better price across the whole supply.
Okay, that's great news story as well, fabulous. And then I have a question just under that, of course, the asset operation, it says is at 62%, and we're talking about the electricity costs being below budget. I know that there's been a very big push from Environment throughout the organisation to change their habits around electricity usage. Could some of that be attributed to that?
I don't believe so, Councillor Kirkland. I think it's just we have seen savings in electricity compared to budget for this year. We will be looking at that closely in terms of our operational budget set for next year as well, to ensure that we're closer to the mark in terms of what that budget looks like. But yeah, that's where we're seeing probably some savings just compared to budget.
Oh, okay. I was getting ready to celebrate and say, woohoo, turn the lights off as you leave the room has made a big difference. Yeah.
It's probably contributed
still
to
doesn't
it,
have
but not that great
still
deal, I wouldn't think.
All righty. Thank you very much,
thanks,
Mr Mayor.
thanks, Councillor Kirkland. Councillor Rutherford?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. My question was about the extra cost of chemicals for turbidity as well. And I'm just wondering whether we can have an email or something that delves into that a little bit more, because, you know, our river flows quite regularly. I don't understand what's driving it now, why all of a sudden there is an issue now when, you know, we get big flows in the river quite regularly.
Peter,
I'm happy to provide a report on it, but it's not the size of the flow, it's the changing water conditions. So how much we have to treat is not flow related, it's the actual nature of the water at the moment is particularly...
yeah, I think what Councillor Rutherford's talking about is that with 5 rivers into one, that there's some years that we're going to have a lot of flows continually going through.
Yeah.
That's not the reason, it's more to do with what's in the water, in the turbidity.
It's what's in the water as well as contributing to it, yeah. But I'm happy to do a report on it. I mean, this has happened a number of times. It was 2 or 3 years ago, we went through a very similar thing where we really had to up our quantities of chemicals to treat the water.
And I guess that's what I'd like to understand. Yeah. It sort of seems to be jumping out as an anomaly at the moment, and it may not be. No. And so that's what I'd like to understand as to why suddenly it's there when we haven't seen that before, and yet the conditions don't seem to be any different now than what we've had historically.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think Peter's mentioned it, and that's probably a bit of an explanation. It's not this is not a one-off. It's happened previously, so yeah. But it's not a regular annual experience.
No, and there's a range of other factors. I mean, we're in the middle of trialling some new filtered mediums, so that is compounding how we do things as well. So there's a range of factors underneath here in this plan, but happy to do a report.
Yeah.
Not necessarily a report, just an email, or just some dot points so that we can understand when people sort of ask us some questions, we can, we've got answers to be able to provide to them.
No, good point.
Well.
Yes, sorry.
One more, and that was, I just don't know if I'm reading this correctly or I'm not, whether there's a change of word that I'm not getting. So when we come to capital income and capital expenditure, that percentage is the monthly. What happened to the year to date for capital?
No, that's actually year to date.
That is year to date?
Yeah, that's the spend year to date. 48% of the budget for income is the year to date, and the capital expenditure is 29% of the budget year to date.
So what are our chances of completing our capital program?
No chance.
Yeah.
We've consciously slowed up our budget and expenditure on a whole range of projects so that we can next year and the year after manage the required capital we need in those years for water-related projects. So if you recall, we did footpaths for main roads for almost 9 months. That was to save that amount. We also did not start a number of the major treatment projects until late. So we've just awarded North Rocky now instead of last July. So we've consciously shifted our capital forward. so that we can have it in place for these major projects.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Rutherford. Councillor Kirkland, further question?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, I did have another highlighted thing here, and that was the capital expenditure being at 29%, which Councillor Rutherford has picked up on as well. And so just to further add into that, so thank you, you've answered part of my questioning around that, Peter, but I also wanted to know through money, does that affect us? We actually have key indicators around delivery of expectation of capital expenditure. Does that affect us at all, that low?
Yeah, I guess where that affects us is through the chair, is through our borrowings program and what we borrow. So we had received approval to borrow 40 million from Queensland Treasury Corporation. We will reassess that as we go, as we assess those budget packs, as we've had a look at, you know, the preliminary information in those budget packs, and we're seeing quite large numbers into 22, 23 and beyond. So we'll reassess what that means and whether we reduce what we borrow, because obviously there are some contingencies around this. If we, you know, we will have to mitigate against increased interest rates and what that looks like into next year in terms of a borrowing program as well. So assessments will be made around that, particularly in relation to the low spend in the capital budget.
Okay, thank you, councillors. No further questions on that one. Could I seek a mover and a second with regards to the officer's recommendation? Move Councillor Latchin, seconded Councillor Smith. I'll put that. Those in favour? Those opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. Thanks very much, Marnie. Moving on to sponsorship of the Mayor's Plate, Rockhampton Jockey Club Incorporated. Damon, thank you.
Good morning, Mayor, councillors. Through the Chair, the report for your consideration this morning is a request for sponsorship that Council has received in relation to the upcoming Mayor's Plate horse race event at the, on behalf of the Rockhampton Jockey Club, that's coinciding with the Capricornia yearling sales there in April. This is an event that Council has traditionally supported in the past, with both direct financial contribution in the sum that's been requested again for this year's event, alongside a additional in-kind component. The difference between our historic support for the event that's being sought on this occasion is rather a substitution has been requested for that in-kind support from a marketing promotions perspective, and rather seeking a waiver of associated fees and charges of council relating to the Capricornia yearling sales, but happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Other questions? Deputy Mayor, Councillor Fisher. Oh, Councillor Wickerson.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Look, I'm not a racing person, except on Melbourne Cup Day. I became an instant expert that day, but this event is so good for our region for a number of reasons. If you look through the visitor nights, there's nearly 1,600 visitor nights. So just even apart from accommodation, which in its own right is significant, it's all the other costs. They've got to feed their livestock, they've got to feed themselves, and they'll probably go out for a beverage somewhere. So it's the impact is amazing for what I think is a quite modest investment in that. On top of that, it really puts us on the local, the national stage for horse racing events. I mean, they're quite high reward in some of those races, so I think it'll get Rockhampton on the map for other things in addition to beef and Rocky Nats and all sorts of things. The only comment that I'd have is in the letter that they sent through, it did offer as part of that package as sponsor a table for 10 council people or guests. I think the optics of that probably aren't terribly good. I'd rather that be very politely declined.
Yeah.
And say thank you for that, but it just doesn't look good, and it's probably not kosher anyway.
doesn't pass the pub test, and I think that's
no.
one there we respectfully decline that offer. I think that's that was part of the. I don't think it's one. I've never been involved in that previously, so I think it's one that we let through to the keeper, but acknowledge that. Thanks, Councillor Wickerson. Councillor Rutherford.
Mr Mayor, I'm just wondering whether you can put these dot points separately, please.
Mm-hmm. As in two recommendations?
Yes.
Yep. So just to do the first one and then the second one?
Yes.
Yep. Okay. Councillor Smith?
Oh, look, I just want to speak in favour of it because having owned horses, they cost a huge amount of money to feed and especially to race, all the equipment they need and barriers, saddlery, clothing, trainers and jockeys and the owners even, when they come to Rocky, a lot of the owners, don't even live here. They come up when their horses are racing sometimes. But I just, but also with the yearling sales, that's a huge event in Rocky. And if you can imagine Roberts Fortin Pavilion, the indoor section is where the horses actually come in there to get sold. And it's really incredible to see. If you've never been to one, it's worth going to have a look. But just with the table, I know what people are saying about that, but also if we're not there, it looks like we're not supporting it. And Advance Rockhampton had the table last time, and I was actually there because I did the presentation because you were unavailable.
Yeah, I think we could still have the table, but maybe we pay our own fees to go through it. I think it's just that perception there that we're doing something in that, especially when it's in racing or something like that. It's just that little level.
Yeah, but I think it's like most things. If we're not there, it looks like we don't care.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's understood. And I echo your comments there. The sales are to the economy. It's a great boost.
Oh,
and
it's huge.
Another great thing that we're recognised for, not only the beef but the equine industry as well. The benefits that brings to our region as well. Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Fisher.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, the reason I was sort of keen to go last because I wasn't quite sure if anyone would pick up that comment in the letter about a table at this event. One of the things that was mentioned to me that's something that is happening at some of the western areas is they're using it to foster young people, sort of races, or the industry, the young jockeys, young stable hands and that may be there. It might be there that you as Mayor host a number of up-and-coming young people within the industry that you want to keep in our local area that actually could be invited by yourself or by the Jockey Club to actually join yourself at the event. And the racing industry is more than just about the industry itself. I think that country races are probably one of the best forms of working with the mental health and all of those associated issues throughout our communities. It's a time there that people can attend. You don't have to be the richest or the poorest person, but you can attend just to have that interaction and networking. So could I just sort of throw in that suggestion that maybe is sort of something there that it could be used as a partnership between the Mayor and the Rockhampton Jockey Club to foster some of our up-and-coming bright young people in the industry.
I'm open to those discussions, Councillor. If everyone's supportive of it, it's something there we could talk through AR and see whether it's something there that could be possible. But again, that's something there we could probably talk about offline. But if there's any real objections to it, just let us know and we can take it from there. Okay, thanks, Councillor. Well, I'm happy to move as per the officer's recommendation for the first part of the recommendation. Seek a second. Seconded, Councillor Fisher. Put that. Those in favour? Opposed? Motion's carried. Do you want to vote against it, Councillor? Councillor Rutherford. The second officer's recommendation. Again, Councillor Smith, you happy to move? Seek a seconder. Councillor Wickerson. I'll put that. Those in favour? Those opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. Thanks very much, Damon. We'll move on to our next agenda item. The revised policies, entertainment, hospitality. If you'd like to speak to that one. Thanks, Damon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through the Chair, very briefly, for your consideration this morning, councillors, adoption of a framework for the receiving, purchasing, distribution, reporting and declaring of ticketing in various policies we have across the organisation. Further, there's been a number of additional amendments that has come to Council previously in the expenses reimbursement and provision of facilities for the Mayor and Councillors policy, the Councillor Gifts Benefits and Hospitality policy as well, and seeking Council's consideration and adoption of those amendments as outlined in the officer's recommendation there this morning. When this matter was last discussed a number of weeks ago, there has been a further amendment made to the entertainment and hospitality policy in clause 5.1, just clarifying what has been a traditional arrangement around the approval process for the provision of alcohol at events. Again, just reinforcing what has been the traditional practice, but embedding that in the policy document. But again, happy to take any questions, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thanks very much, Damon. Again, yes, we did walk through it in detail previously, and I thank you for that work. Questions, Councillor Wickerson?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. A couple of things. I don't know whether our system allows it, but with all the attachments there, it was quite difficult to flick between one to the other. Is there any way over on the bookmarks on the left-hand side of it that they could be itemised there? Just so if you wanted to flick from one to the other without having to scroll through it, or is that way too hard? Other than to print them out and have them side by side, just when you wanted to compare them, there's lots of...
And through the Chair, I appreciate with the number of policies and with the track changes version and the clean versions, it may have been difficult, so apologies for that. We'll certainly...
I might need some offline training, do I? I'll get some offline training, sorry.
Click that little blue arrow there and it'll take you down to it.
Oh, that's what that is. Okay, thank you. A day that you learn something new is a day well spent, I think.
That's right.
The second one is at the last time we visited this, others raised about the vehicles too for rural areas, but my thing with the vehicle was to look at the cap to encourage, for councils that wish to, the uptake of electric vehicles. I know currently, because of economies of scale and all sorts of things, they're dearer, and I don't think there's any models that currently fit into our cap without us paying the difference of it. I know this won't suit everybody, but understand the fleet manager has got a comparison of the two types of vehicles, similar vehicles, one's EV and one's not, over the life cycle of that car. I don't know whether that's come through. I think he's recently got that, and I think he's probably perusing it himself. We did have some commentary about the resale value, and obviously that's got to be taken into account, the absolute accurate whole of life cost. But if it was comparable and there were some savings with fuel and maintenance, even taking into account the resale, whether that cap couldn't be increased to whatever is equivalent, so that we're not, a council's not out of pocket for that, but it does encourage that uptake for councils that wish to pursue that. So I'm just asking, I don't want to hold this process up today, but if in the near future that information can come through and be analysed, can it be amended at any time?
Is that including the hybrid vehicles as well when you make comparison to the traditional hybrid?
That could be in there too.
Electric?
I don't know, I read somewhere, but even with, specifically talked about a RAV that I've got, and I think Councillor Smith has coming very soon. The saving was about, per year was about $800, $900 just in fuel for average usage. Of course, there's other costs with it too, and I think as Councillor Fisher raised, you've got to also consider what you do at the end of life if we don't get stuck with these things with a massive battery changeover. But the fleet manager said even that's being addressed, that they recycle the batteries into other appliances. But that's above my knowledge of it at this stage. But
Ross?
Yep, through the chair, Mr. Mayor, that can come back any time. So yeah, and I mean, and I think there's a review point for that policy is April 24, but it can be done any time.
Yeah, so the provision,
yeah.
sorry, through the chair, the provision that we've also included there around the review date for those policies, that's essentially the maximum time period for when all those policies will be reviewed. Under the actual regulations, there is provision for a review of those policies at any time. So if there is council's minded to revisit that issue, whether it be around the vehicle allowance or the some of that modelling that you were talking about, Councillor Wickerson, then that's something that can be brought back.
Okay. Thanks, Damon. Thanks, Ross. Councillor Latcham.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick question. Should this be approved, is there any retrospectivity to any of this policy?
I'm not No, I don't think so. No retrospectivity to it. No,
That's
it's
good.
from. Yeah.
No, that's good. That's just
Thank
checking.
you.
Thank you.
Councillor Smith.
Yeah, when we had the workshop and I put my case forward about having to pay for a nudge bar and a tow bar, I thought we were putting that amount up, the 37,500. And I'd be interested to see, and I think I did look at it at the time, but now he's looking at it because I wasn't allowed to have a diesel vehicle, how much more hybrids are. And that takes up that amount, that 37 and a half.
Through the chair, at the where it was done at the workshop, obviously it's not a decision-making process. So, and my recollection on discussion was that can be, once again, can be increased any time to what council. I know we spoke about the safety vehicles and that sort of stuff as well. So that amount can be changed any time. I'm not aware of where that. If there's any urgency to change that just yet, with the replacement vehicles all scheduled for that review period, as Damon has said. That's my take on it, but that can be changed any time, Councillor.
I think as it's still a live document, I think there's opportunity there. We might seek a bit more clarification about some of those questions that are being asked, so we'll get a report or information on that to the council, so we've got a better, clear idea about where we're going, so we can make those decisions if the changes need to happen. Yep. Councillor Rutherford. Oh, sorry, Councillor Smith.
Yeah, I'd like to see it changed as soon as possible, so other people aren't up for that cost.
Well, it'll all be in the budget process too. It's probably a great time to have that work done now, so we look at the budget about what it means going forward as well. Yep. Is that all right? Do we need a timeline on that, though?
It was a good round figure.
No, through the chair, that amount, if we're just talking about the allocation amount, that can be changed now. If councillors have a preferred amount, that can be changed now. It's just very much a changing picture at the moment in the environment we're in, that was all. But it can wait.
I wouldn't like to make that change now without having some information on the back of what those impact, what the options are, or what the current situation is, or where it goes. So that'd be good to get that detail, Ross. Councillor Rutherford.
Yeah, Mr Mayor, I think the confusion probably is that councillors were expecting a little bit of different wording in that paragraph. I think that's what we decided after that workshop, that there would be some options to have a look at. That said, if it's going to be reviewed by April 24, there's no more vehicles to be bought before then, I don't think anyway. So we have the opportunity to do that again.
To have a look at it and then go from there.
Yeah,
yep.
before the next one.
That's yeah.
You know, it's really neither here nor there at the moment.
Fair point, but it's great to be able to investigate the other opportunities or options there and what it means going forward. Okay.
Mine's out of sequence because I'm 60k round trip, even to come to a meeting. So obviously my mileage goes up a lot quicker than anybody else's. I'm on my fourth car now in 10 years.
Councillor Rutherford.
Mr Mayor, was it not discussed that if there was a need for a safety item on a car, it could be the CEO can approve it? Is that what was...
Yeah, through the chair, that's correct, Councillor. Also, if this one is out of sequence, I'm not sure how far out of sequence it is, but we can certainly address this policy before then if need be, when it's coming up. I'm just not sure how far out of sequence that one is, if there is one. But yeah, all the others should be.
I'm way over the mileage too. It's 143,000 because I've been waiting 12 months for a new car anyway.
Yeah. Okay, we can address that.
Deputy Mayor, Councillor Fisher.
Actually, Councillor Smith's just raised a very, very good point to go, that balance of the value of the car, sort of the turnover and that. There is a major problem in the world now with availability of certain vehicles and things as well, that we're probably going to have to even look at the process, because basically what Councillor Smith has just said is her car's probably lost a considerable amount of resale value in just sort of clicking over that mileage, that we may even need to have a bit of a review of that, so that we're actually still purchasing vehicles that have not only good value, reliability and resale value, but not being sort of forced where we've got to go to something of a lesser long-term value. So maybe we do need to have a discussion about a number of those items as it comes forward. And at the same...
Good through. The fleet manager does that, Councillor.
Okay.
That's his role, is to do that for us. So behind the scenes, he churns away and does all that type of stuff. We're having the same issue with all our plant and trucks. It's right across the board.
I was going to ask about that, yeah.
Cars
diesel.
At least what our issues. It's those bigger things that provide productivity.
Okay. Okay, councillors, officer's recommendation there. Could I seek a mover and a second with regards to that? Move Councillor Wickerson, seconded Councillor Fisher. I'll put that. Those in favour? Those opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to item 12.1, notice of motion. Councillors, I've presented a notice of motion to rescind the Mount Morgan Aquatic Centre redevelopment project. So I'm happy to move that one. Could I seek a seconder? Councillor Rutherford. Councillor Fisher.
Mr Mayor, I would like to actually suspend standing orders to have a discussion before we move on any further, if that's okay.
Debate.
As a procedural motion.
Happy to do that. So I'll put that. Those in favour, those opposed. Motion's carried. Thank you. Councillor Kirkland.
I wasn't sure that there was allowed to be discussion around a rescind motion.
There can be discussion around a rescission motion. It's not a procedural motion as such. So it'd just be probably a little bit cautious because you've got, on the technicality side, you have to deal with the rescission. If that goes through, and then you've got the alternative motion that comes through. So there are two separate portions. They're not done at once. So it depends how much discussion you want to do in this about the second one. It's probably just the...
If it's questions?
Probably okay, Mr Mayor.
Questions. So we'll just need to be, if you could, if we start to get into debate, then we need to be very mindful there, Councillor. So the reason, Councillor Fisher, to do questions?
Yes,
Okay.
probably, and probably with conversation with some of fellow councillors, there are probably, Mr CEO, and I have had this, had spoken to you, there's probably 4 areas I'd like to sort of question as to part of the design process. Would it be acceptable if I actually ask you to question individually?
We've got Alicia coming up, so yeah. Probably, Mr. Mayor, through the bit of the technicality side of it, I actually do think you really need to decide on the rescission first and then have the discussion and the questions around the alternative.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
Okay, Councillor, we'll move into the formal debate. So resume standing orders. So again, Councillor Fisher, you happy to resume standing?
Yes.
Okay, I'll put that we resume standing orders. Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. And we move on to my recommendation that that we reaffirm the allocation of two...
Sorry, Mr Mayor, sorry. You've got to deal with the rescission first.
Okay, right, sorry. Well, I'll move as part of that we rescind the previous and seek a seconder. It's Councillor Wickerson. I'll put those in favour. Those opposed. You wish to record your vote against that. The motion's carried. Thanks, councillors. Councillor Kirkland.
I'm sorry, Ms Mayor, you didn't give an opportunity there to speak to the motion at all.
No. Sorry?
I was just going to speak to the rescind in support. It's too late, you've already done it.
Yep, sorry. So the motion is that the motion is live again, that the officer, the recommendation, my recommendation is there that the money's been allocated. So,
once it's moved and seconded, I'll...
Yep, you're happy to move that we suspend standing orders?
You'll need a mover and seconder.
Yep, I'm happy to move recommendation, seek a seconder. Councillor Rutherford.
Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Kirkland.
May I ask if we deal with this matter in seriatim, please?
Sorry?
Can you put this in, is it seriatim, is that how I say, separately? Each of those points, could we vote on those separately, please?
Well, as a procedural motion, I'd like to actually move to suspend standing orders before we go any further.
Okay, we've got a mover and a seconder, so we might move to suspend standing orders, and we can get some questions. Then we'll work out where we go from there as far as the items go as we work through. So you'll move. Councillor Fisher move that we suspend standing orders. I'll put that. Those in favour? Those opposed?
Require a seconder with a procedural motion, just a single mover.
Put it to vote. Okay, so standing orders are suspended. So questions, councillors. We have Alicia there to answer questions. Councillor Fisher.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Probably there's probably four that if I could put through the CEO to Alicia. Firstly, the maximum cost is $6.5 million. That maximum cost is the very, very cut-off line. That's no.
So, Peter,
that includes contingencies.
Certainly there's an element of contingency budget in there, and we can certainly manage that project and value manage that to be at that maximum cost. There was some discussions earlier in the week whether or not we actually make resolution that it be forced to that $6.5 million, but I just wanted to caution council against that, because with any project, particularly one that's not detailed designed yet, but with any project there are always things that may both make sense to do, whether it be the underlying infrastructure or, and we don't actually know. So until we're into that project, there might be some really good judgment that we come to you and say this is worth doing, whether it's renewal of infrastructure up the road or whatever it be. But through my experience, there's been a number of projects that it makes sense while you've already got the contractor engaged to do value adding. So.
And the other option is if it comes back after the detailed design and it's a lot higher than what's been budgeted for, you've got the option then to
yes, we would value manage that, yes, because I'm hearing that loud and clear in terms of that maximum allocation.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Fisher.
Second question is the pool design over water play, so that we make sure that every part of the pool design so that it caters for not only the young people, but those that need it for therapy, like older people, or those, and that's not the right word, but it's as many people as addresses as many uses of the swimming pool first.
Through the chair,
yep.
I would definitely agree with that prioritisation, like the requirements to have a 25-metre swimming pool is the utmost sort of achievable goal here. Other works are ancillary works that, yes, they are included as part of that initial application, but they would be, I guess, the sacrificial cows if there were, if it turned out that the pool was more expensive to do that.
Thanks, Councillor Fisher.
Next one, water efficiency. And I think this is probably one that I know that I had lots of concerns about, but looking at the very, very best practices in water efficiency in the operation of that pool for the long term.
Alicia, did you want to
Yeah,
talk
so
about the water?
a couple of things around the water efficiency, and sort of speak to the ongoing operational costs. So just remembering, councillors, that this, like the age structure that is at end of life now is significantly leaking, so there is a cost associated with that. So when we have a new pool, we won't have that. But the other discussion that both Andrew Collins and I have is that we do looking for all of the efficiencies that we can around backwashing the pools and different pieces. So we will sort of, just by updating the equipment alone, councillors, in terms of the treatment and the chlorine and all of those pieces with that pool, it will be a much more efficient operations. Does that speak to your question? Oh, the other aspect is that the pool, the filling of the pool is actually factored into the project cost as part of the commissioning.
And water harvesting, I think Andrew mentioned something about water harvesting.
Yeah, we've got to look at all those options, but generally with the project and the sustainability aspect of that project is that we will be looking for all of those options, particularly when there's such water shortage in the town, so that it's better longer term.
And Mr Mayor, the last one is really, I'm actually taking Councillor Rutherford's concern or question, and that is that maintaining a heritage character of the swimming complex, which I think is probably also something that needs to be considered. Is that able to be included?
Back through the chair, and yes, that can be incorporated into the design. We would not be, just to make it clear, we wouldn't be looking at keeping any of the things there, but certainly giving a nod or being sympathetic to the other heritage, that it is a heritage town, essentially, that it needs to fit in with the look and feel of other, you know, you've only got to drive through the town and you can see that that's the focus.
Thank you, Thanks, Councillor Fisher. Councillor Kirkland.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm sure that my colleagues would know that I take all things very seriously, and the fact that we've rescinded this motion that we all supported strongly last week that motion came about as a result of our hesitancy about the organisation's capacity to deliver this project in the scope of what we've actually applied for the grant with. And there was some discussion at that time around some questions that I'd like to just potentially revisit, just to get some clarity on that, if I may. So does the grant agreement delivery and expectation limit us from reducing the scope of this project should the costs demand such? I suppose referring to page 15 of the grant application, colleagues, I have absolutely overthought this, I'm sure, but you can see by the paperwork in front of me, I've gone back to the history of how we landed at this project, the changes in the costings of the project. I've rewatched meetings, I've read through everything, I've looked at the Mount Morgan Argus, which came out last week as well, and a number of other supporting documents. So part of the supporting document here is that grant application, and on page 15, I'll just refer to it for my own purpose while you answer that question, if you might, Alicia.
Yeah, so back through the chair. So if we are changing the scope of this grant, and I mentioned to you that we explored already with, I guess, the spokesperson of because it's actually like a committee or I'm not sure what they call, but it's a sort of a number of players that have put this in terms of mining and government, and so they've allocated the funds. So when we spoke with the gentleman around varying the timing of the grant to perhaps leave it another summer, and we also talked about reducing council's contribution towards the project, because certainly that had been raised to me with the difficulties that we're having. They were very keen that there was a number of criteria that they assessed which brought this project to the top of the list, so which was great. That's how we've got that grant announcement. They then went on to say that, you know, there would be scope changes allowed, but when it spoke to the timing, which is what we're exploring, they sort of were disappointed in that, because we should have applied for the next round in their mind. Okay, because what they are keen to see, these are grants that stimulate things, and if we're sitting on those grants, that's sort of not achieving their goals. So I completely get that. The other aspect in terms of the organisation's contribution, that again must have been one of the criteria. So when I said about reducing council's contribution, they said, oh, we would want to put that back into that assessment tool. We then went on to talk about, you know, managing the project within that budget envelope, and, you know, as long as we weren't compromising the 25-metre pool, which is what I spoke to earlier, they would be negotiable. And those sort of things happen all the time in these grant projects, because they acknowledge in that submission that it wasn't detailed designed. So there will be things that come out.
So the short answer is no. Changing the scope will not affect the grant application. Changing the actual, what we've told them we're going to deliver you know, playgrounds and whatever else to go with it. So everything you've listed there that's going to be delivered in this scope, if we have to pull some of that out or change it to meet the cost expectation, it won't affect the grant.
The short answer is it depends what we want to change. Like, I've already explored that contribution and timing, and they weren't amenable to that. But other minor things, as long as, like, if we were deciding a 15-metre pool or a lesser pool, no, well, that was a key. A 25-metre pool is one of the key outcomes that they're trying to achieve. So, but then when we talked about sacrificing shade structure and different pieces to fit that, yeah, that's absolutely fine.
And I have an email from Andrew Collins saying that you know, he's had a look at the project costs, and what he believes he's come up with is, and he's attached the details from Rawlings Constructions and the cost handbook and the Queensland Government publication on facility costs, and which shows that the costs that he's applied to the main structures should be enough. And also there's approximately 15%, $800,000 contingency allocated to the project as well. So they have that buffer there should be required.
I will qualify, Mr Mayor, that these seem to be almost extraordinary times in terms of cost escalations, like I'm hearing it quite often in terms of project managers and some of the things that we're seeing in other projects. But this is a lot of projects we start off with a very small contingency, so that's why we're back with the table. This has sort of got an appropriate contingency to manage those things.
Yeah. Thanks, Councillor Kirkland.
I've got a page full of questions here, if you might indulge me. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
It's not,
Yeah,
Councillor,
so-
you're welcome to ask questions.
Thank
It's not
you.
whether I approve it or not. It's
Since we've mentioned that contingency, it does come down to one of my questions here. I note that previously there was communication through previous reports that there would be a contingency of 20%. So this contingency, I believe, is 15%, which is 800,000. Can I ask what the normal contingency percentage is in delivery of capital works projects?
Peter?
There is... The contingency percentage varies to the point where the project is. The 15% contingency is probably on the slightly lower side for where it is, but the nature of the project is not a high-risk project. So a swimming pool 25 metre is not something unheard of. It's very standardised concrete construction plus plant equipment, so it's been judged as an adequate contingency. The other point to this is that there is some, I think the dollars in ancillaries, which is shade structures and other things, is there as well, which gives you a bit of flexibility. The only thing I will caution you is that you cannot say it's the upper limit or whatever, or maximum expenditure, because council is entering into a contract between two parties that agree that we will pay certain components of the project that are unforeseen. Some risks are with the contractor, some are with ours. So once you sign a contract, you actually have gone into a price that's going to be determined by the project. Makes sense. Okay? And the last comment I'll make is that I have had a good look at the budget. I do think it stacks up okay. The only two risks that I see that are not factored in here is the location. The regional factor of carting and building up at Mount Morgan will be a figure. And as always, you'll have the underground risk, which is on all these kind of projects. But there is a whole point. If it came back at a tender price and it was exceedance, or it consumed our contingency, then we have to make a judgment call. But
Councillor Kirkland?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So the grant application on page 7, 3.2.2 says a few things there, but it's basically saying that we can't use, let me just get the wording, page 7. The question around here is additional things that are not allowed to be used, not allowed to come into, don't qualify as part of the project. So those are things like signage and the opening, conceptual designs, has there been an allocation of those extra costs to the council's budget? So going out to the community for consultation, all of those types of things, according to the grant application, are not allowed to be used up in grant funding.
I'd have to have a look at that one. Back through the chair, I would have to have a look at that. I think we've spoken at the table before that community consultation, you know, you have a community meeting up in Mount Morgan and people do show up. So I expect those things to be somewhat minor in terms of the consultation and the opening aspects. In terms of the conceptual designs, I would have to take that question on notice, or Pete might be able to answer that.
There's a provision for, in the order of $250,000 for design development, which is the concept development, because the design cost will be actually in the contract, but we've already got, so we've got $250,000 to do the front end, which will be concepts, talk to community, and also specify a performance agreement for how we want the pool to perform.
So that's already allocated in
Sorry, and I probably need to state the obvious here, that those things come out of our money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. That is what I was getting at.
Yeah.
And secondary to that, have the site, the demolition costs, including the old squash courts, been included in the project cost estimates?
Yes. Yep. There's $200,000 provided for site demolition.
Okay. Very good. And can I ask what methodology was used for the cost estimate? Kind of gone into it a little bit with your letter from Andrew.
The estimate has been prepared from a zero base, so it's actually determined the cost for each element and calculated it. So it's not a square meterage. It has actually detailed every component, plant room, shade structure, determined the cost for all of those. It's been checked against it was referenced a Queensland standard on effectively the typical cost for these leisure facilities, and they've lined up as basically within each other, very close.
Okay, thank you. Could I ask the officers, through you, Mr Mayor, what the ramifications of not continuing with the grant at this stage may or may not be, and what the compared ramifications of pulling out down the track if it
it's a political decision. Council might hold that we're in just asking questions. That's a political.
Question?
No, not really. That's a decision that.
Sorry, I'd say it's a question for the political side.
When we get to the debate, it's not the officers make that call whether do we accept the grant or not.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
So just to speak to the operational side rather than the political side, I made it quite clear at our committee meeting that that facility is end of life, so the outcome would be to close the pool. Like it's not to limp it along further at the substantial extra costs of the water leakage and everything else. Like that decision would result in us closing the pool.
Thank you. Councillor Kirkland.
I'm just reading through my question to make sure that it's not a political question. Okay, that's it. I'm ready to go.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Wickerson.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. A couple of questions. My colleagues already covered the one about demolition costs, so I'm happy that they're included on there. We're happy that that's realistic, given that it also includes the squash courts, and I know there's some advantages too that the hole's already there, so that's probably a plus that I might balance out a bit. So, the second one is, and we touched on it earlier about the sustainability of the new design and ongoing operational costs, because that's what we're clearly focused on across the board. Is there an allowance for solar electricity and solar heating? Are we looking at including that on a nearby large roof, just to reduce? I know there's an upfront cost, but to reduce that ongoing operational costs somewhat.
So just to be clear, this pool is not heated, so that's a no for the solar heating. I'd have to take on notice that question around the solar. Councillors, you know how I feel, and I've just been looking at budgets, so it's just what the structures or the size, if you think about the footprint, there's not particularly large roof spaces. But Peter, do you have any comment to add there?
It will be in the performance design, and it will be assessed of whether it stacks up or not. So I mean, I know everyone loves solar. Quite often it doesn't
add up.
It doesn't add up. So
Yeah,
it will be
no,
considered.
understood.
But yeah.
But always more cost effective to do it as part of the project than to retrofit something later on. But I absolutely understand what you're saying. And the last question, Mr Mayor, is again about the heritage of it. And I understand and exactly why the community up there value their heritage so much. It's ingrained in their community and culture. But with the grandstands, assuming that they would comply with all of our current standards for grandstands and seating and safety and whatever, is there any possibility that they could be relocated somewhere at a modest cost to maybe the showgrounds or something, and so they can have the new facility but also not totally lose them? I know relocating is never...
I'm happy to have a look at it, but it reminds me of a bridge we were trying to relocate. So we've got to look at the costs and all that. There is provision for new grandstands in this budget, and we'd have to have a look at compliance and all those things.
I guess,
just on
similar
our
response, it'd be something we'd have to investigate, but be clear that it hasn't been allowed in any costing. So that would be something that we would come back on what the value to do that.
It would be a separate project to me.
Correct.
Because that's going to add costs.
But we can certainly do that before the demolition aspect.
Just on our brief inspection when we were up there, they appeared to be in reasonably sound condition. They weren't like collapsing. So if it was at all possible, that might keep the local community happier.
Give them a
if at all
job.
possible. Sorry?
It'll give them a job to keep that wood going.
Yes. Okay.
And probably that would be, the other thing is that, we'd be looking to try and see whether a community group could take that on, because it's the substantial renewal that was required to the facility in terms of all of that wood. That was one of the reasons that we're not keen to keep it.
I'm just pondering, when we did the riverbank, we had a similar situation with one of the shelters, that the contractors that did the job, my recollection is that they took it on themselves as a community project to relocate that somewhere. Just wondering, at some stage we might sort of broach that with whoever it is that gets the contract, just as a community contribution back. I don't know. Okay, that was it.
I'll leave that with the CEO and Peter and Alicia to consider. Yeah. Okay, Councillor, if there's no further questions, Councillor Fisher moved that we resume standing orders. I'll put that. Those in favour? Those opposed? Motion's carried. Now, councillors, I'm happy to move the recommendation. Rutherford. I'll speak to the motion, councillors. I believe the need to have a pool for the Mount Morgan community is something there that's existing, and to not go ahead with a project of this size is something there that would paint council with a bad reputation. And I understand the issues that we have with the water carting, and we're dealing with them separately. Understanding that this project had started well before we'd started the water carting, to not continue with it at this point in time, I believe that would leave a paint council's reputation in a bad position. Also, we have external funding in our federal grants applications for the upcoming priorities in the federal election, and also that the project there is one that, with external funding being approved, would make it difficult in the future if we were to apply again at a later stage. So, councillors, in the interest of the public and the community, looking at what the project entails, and mindful we've got another opportunity once a detailed design comes back if the cost escalation's there. But on those principles, I'd seek councillors' support to continue with the project. Speakers against the motion?
Not against it, just wanting to talk to that point 1 there, reaffirms the allocation of $2 million included in the 21-22 budget.
Yep.
Would that not be 21-22, 22-23 budgets, because there's no going to be delivered, that won't be delivered in the 21-22 budget?
Technically, Peter?
Through the Mayor, I think that is correct. It's spread over 2 years, the project.
Okay.
2 financial years.
So we'll move it to 22, 23 as another. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
That's true.
Okay.
Yep, that's true.
That'll carry across. Okay. Okay. You happy with the changes to that? Oh, sorry, Councillor Wilkinson.
No.
Oh, Councillor Rutherford, sorry. Going too many moves and seconders. Speaker against the motion, Councillor Mathers.
Thanks very much, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, I probably just would like to reiterate or repeat what I said during our committee meeting, which is, this is not about whether the public at Mount Morgan deserve a pool or whether they don't. They certainly do deserve a pool. They have one there at the moment, and I still believe that, I'd like to see a report come back in regards to if there's any chance of that being saved. But the decisions that I'm looking at is purely and simply financial, nothing else. And it is purely and simply the fact that, we need to find over $3.5 million for our business case study for the getting water up there. At some point, we've got to make decisions as to what's more important. And, we don't have the money to push further forward with the water pipeline up there for a substantial water source for the public up there. So, I would just rather see that money used for something that is more important, which is supplying water to that community. That's my view on that. I think we've just got to be, I use the words before, it's fiscal responsibility.
Thanks, Councillor Mathers. Question, Councillor?
No.
No.
Waiting for you to
Speaker
say.
4. Sorry?
Yep, all good.
Councillor Fisher.
If I may, Mr Mayor. Councillors, I think the Mayor's comments as to why we should support this motion are very wise. Our council has developed a very, very good reputation, and I know comments from the Deputy Prime Minister's office, I know it's a different level of government, commented about the airport, about not only being able to be delivered on budget, but delivered on time and also delivered with the community's support. And I think the Mayor has, during this sort of process, has raised that it's actually a lot of our reputation as Rockhampton Regional Council and our ability to be able to deliver a project. I know that there were questions that many of the councillors had. I think today that they have been answered, but I would like to endorse the comments of the Mayor. I think that it is something that the community needs. I believe that with what has been raised today and our Alicia has taken on board, we actually there will be able to deliver a very, very good project to the community, but actually addressing all of those needs. So I would endorse the Mayor's comments and also seek support for this recommendation.
Thanks, Councillor Fisher. Another speaker against the motion. I'll wrap up. Councillors, again, fully cognisant of the water situation and our financial position. Again, it comes back to a project that had started prior to our carting the water, being mindful that this grant funding that is extraordinary, that we wouldn't receive for a community of that scale and that size. It'd be a shame to knock that back for the community of Mount Morgan that is desperately in need of refurbishment of a lot of their facilities in the town. And I think it's beholden to the table and the councillors of today to support this project, but again, still being mindful that we need to make sure that we're financially responsible going forward. But I believe that with the commitment that we've made and the external funding, that achieves that and still provides to the community while we still have the challenges and the work we need to do with securing a permanent water supply to the community of Mount Morgan that this council is charged with, and something there that we continue to advocate for and push. So that said, councillors, I'll wrap the debate up. I'll put those in favour. Those opposed, I'd like to record against that. Councillors Latcham and Councillor Mathers record their vote against the motion. The motion is carried. Thanks very much, councillors. We'll move on to further business. We have a number of items to be dealt with in confidential reports in closed session. Councillor Fisher, did you have a question?
Before we go into confidential, can we do our general business?
Oh, sorry. Yes. No, you're right to go to general business before we move in. No general business.
Urgent business.
Sorry. All questions. Urgent business. Councillor Fisher.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to just ask the council or councillors for their indulgence. I've been asked to be the face for Relay for Life this year, and Relay for Life, I know when I look around the table, everyone here has been involved in Relay for Life over the last 20 years. And former councillor Rose Swadling had made a suggestion that maybe each councillor would like to just do a small video of support for Relay for Life, and for those that are going through their journey with cancer, those that are, who have supported family members on that journey, or for those there that have sort of been on a journey, and also there if they could bring a Relay for Life shirt for everybody to wear and support. And then the last part, would councillors be interested in actually forming a team as being part of Relay for Life as well? So I'd just like to raise those. When I was first asked, I actually wasn't quite sure about taking on that role because I'm still doing my own journey. But it is telling the story, it is support, and when I look around the table, everybody there has been so supportive in the past that it would be great to have it as a sort of a combined effort. So I was just raising that, Mr. Mayor, if councillors would be interested.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Fisher. Yeah, no, I think it's something there that we're supportive of. I've just see a number of lights on, so I'll go to a couple of questions there. Councillor Mathers and Councillor Wickerson.
Thanks very much, Mr. Mayor. Thanks very much, Councillor Fisher. That's it's certainly a good cause. I'd just like to say that I'd certainly be keen to be part of a team on the proviso that our mayor would wear his super mayor costume.
Don't put that one up by, it's winter time, councillor. Not going there, but in jest, I think it's a worthy cause and one that we need to support. And you never know if enough pressure comes on, you never know. But I wouldn't want to get that on camera. Thank you, Councillor Wickerson.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, happy to keep continuing Relay for Life. It's a fantastic event. I know Councillor Kirkland's been terribly heavily involved with that in the past as well. So, yeah. So, and Councillor Rose as well, being, I'm not sure, was she spokesperson for or chair of the committee or something? Patron, beg your pardon. The only question I had is, as well as councillors, and obviously happy to do that. I think it was a team of one last time I had it. Not that I invited anyone, just sort of rocked up. Council has a process to nominate one or two charities officially. Have we done that this time? Maybe Mr. Sear would know. HR normally get... the
staff do that.
The staff nominate. Have we gone through that process yet?
Not at this stage, no.
No. Well, I guess in addition, I'd be campaigning, lobbying hard that be one of the charities that we support with a range of activities through, and to have a council law and council staff combined team, or we compete against them, something I don't know, but In the past, I think a couple of years ago now, we set the record. I think we raised about $14,000 or $15,000 as a as a council staff team with a range of events. So yeah, good team bonding for all of the organisation, I think. But yeah, happy to support.
Okay, thanks very much. Any other comments with that one? It sounds like we've got a program ahead of us now. We just need to fill it out. So we'll see where that takes us. Thanks very much, Councillor Fisher. Councillor, if there's no other urgent business, we'll move on to our closed session items. 16.1, a property matter. And I'll move that. I'll seek a second. Move in a second that the meeting that we move three items. Property matter. There is a financial assistance grant boundary review with Livingstone and Rockhampton Regional Council. 16.2, 16.3 is a legal matter as well, Councillor. So there's 3 items there. So can I have a move in a second that we deal with those items in closed session? Move, Councillor Smith. Seconded, Councillor Kirkland. I'll put those in favour. Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. And that the meeting move into closed session. Happy to move. I'll move and seek seconded, Councillor Smith. I'll put those in favour. The motion's carried. Thanks, councillors.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
Taking the good with the ups and downs. I wanna see how the world turns round. Let's go adventure in the deep blue sea. Home is with you wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
Taking the good with the ups and downs. I wanna see how the world turns round. Let's go adventure in the deep blue sea. Home is with you wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
Home is with you wherever that may be.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
Taking the good with the ups and downs. I wanna see how the world turns round. Let's go adventure in the deep blue sea. Home is with you wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
Taking the good with the ups and downs. I wanna see how the world turns round. Let's go adventure in the deep blue sea. Home is with you wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming. Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
Taking the good with the ups and downs. I wanna see how the world turns round. Let's go adventure in the deep blue sea. Home is with you wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
with you wherever that may be.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
Taking the good with the ups and downs. I wanna see how the world turns round. Let's go adventure in the deep blue sea. Home is with you wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
Taking the good with the ups and downs. I wanna see how the world turns round. Let's go adventure in the deep blue sea. Home is with you wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
adventure in the deep blue sea. Home is with you wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
Taking the good with the ups and downs. I wanna see how the world turns round. Let's go adventure in the deep blue sea. Home is with you wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
Taking the good with the ups and downs. I wanna see how the world turns round. Let's go adventure in the deep blue sea. Home is with you wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
with you wherever that may be.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
Taking the good with the ups and downs. I wanna see how the world turns round. Let's go adventure in the deep blue sea. Home is with you wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
Taking the good with the ups and downs. I wanna see how the world turns round. Let's go adventure in the deep blue sea. Home is with you wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine.
Okay, we're live, sorry. Yep, thank you. Councillors, a confidential 16.1, the officer's recommendation there, that they work to the property with option 1 as outlined in the report. Could I seek a mover and a seconder with regards to that resolution? Move Councillor Smith. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Rutherford. We'll put that. Those in favour? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Moving on to 16.2, again the officer's recommendation there with the assessment of the boundary review of Livingston Shire and Rockhampton Regional Council. Council, as outlined in those recommendations, I'm happy to move that recommendation and seconded by the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Fisher. We'll put that. Those in favour? Again, the motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to our last item, that the legal matter that proceed with the action as recommended within the report. Again, I'm happy to move with that one and seek second. Again, Deputy Mayor, Councillor Fisher. I'll put that. Those in favour? Opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you very much, councillors. Councillors, that draws us to the end of our agenda items today. Thank you very much for your participation and involvement, and thanks the officers and everyone for presenting those reports, and I'll close the meeting. Thank you.